Good morning. On behalf of the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies at Georgetown University and the Tawakkol Karman Foundation and Democracy for the Arab World Now, DAWN, I would like to welcome our guests and participants to this important event. We have a distinguished lineup of speakers today, including Tawakkol Karman, Nobel Peace Prize laureate Sarah Lee Whitson, who we've just heard from, Executive Director of DAWN, Abdulaziz Jubairi, Vice President of the Yemeni Parliament, Khaled al-Yamani, former Yemeni Minister of Foreign Affairs and UN Ambassador, and Saleh al-Jabwani, former Yemen Minister of Transportation, as well as many other distinguished speakers that we will have the privilege of hearing from today. It is unfortunate that it is a political and humanitarian crisis that brings us here today, and we must begin by acknowledging the weight of this. After more than 8 years of war, Yemen has experienced widespread destruction and an unprecedented humanitarian crisis. According to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, the war has caused the deaths of nearly 250,000 people, including many civilians, among them thousands of children. The UN and Human Rights Watch have also recently reported on the killing and abuse of migrants and asylum seekers by parties to the conflict. While many of these deaths have been the result of direct violence, others are indirect and a product of a man-made humanitarian crisis created by the parties to the conflict. This crisis has been significantly exacerbated by an ongoing naval blockade imposed on Yemen by a Saudi-led coalition. In July of this year, the World Food Program estimated that almost 1 in 3 Yemenis, 19 million people, were food insecure, with 3.5 million acutely malnutrition. Human rights workers on the ground, as Sarah has just attested to, on the ground in Yemen, as well as abroad, as well as the UN and international human rights organizations, have worked diligently throughout this period to document the tremendous human rights violations and repeated violations of international law that this conflict has witnessed, including the deliberate targeting of civilians committed by all parties to the conflict. In April 2022, a limited truce saw a reduction in the intensity of fighting in most parts of the country, and small gains in humanitarian assistance, though the blockade remains. While the truce is fragile and there have been repeated violations of the truce, overall civilian deaths have decreased and some space for movement and goods and people have opened up. While a continuation of the truce is possible, the potential for a return to full hostilities remains, and the ongoing violations means that ravages of war continue to be felt, including significant human rights violations such as imprisonment, torture, attacks on journalists. What recent conflicts have made abundantly clear to all of us is that these wars and their effects are not contained locally, nor are they produced locally. Sitting here in Washington, D.C., it also behooves us to acknowledge that the United States has also been party to this conflict and has significant leverage over many of the key actors engaged. As such, it has a moral responsibility to actively work towards its end. Today's conference brings together Yemeni leaders and scholars, journalists and human rights activists from Yemen and beyond to think productively about a way forward. The Center for Contemporary Arab Studies was asked to host this event, and it reflects a type of engagement with knowledge producers, policymakers, and activists in the Arab world that we are committed to, one that centers the expertise and experiences of those most directly impacted by the conflict, as well as researchers who center their experiences. It is our hope today that today's deliberations can help lay a foundation upon which a brighter future for Yemen can be built. Thank you very much.